grabs Plimpton's hand as hard as possible and starts squeezing it, staring him dead in the eye till the table is shaking. And finally, Plimpton's date turns around and is like, what the fuck is going on here? And Hemingway, still gripping Plimpton's hand, looks her dead in the eye and is like, we're just being a couple of Norman Mailers.
And the ghost of Norman Mailer has descended upon us and is smiling with a devil's twinkle in his eye.
You've seen Norman at his most savage. You've seen him in action.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, Plimpton broke up a fight that I didn't want to have happen between Norman and me.
When was this?
It was in front of Madison Square Garden Felt Forum after a Joe Shaw fight. And after the fight, we were near each other on 7th Avenue, and Norman sticks a drink under my nose and says, "What's this?" And I said, "Bourbon." And he said, "Yeah, not scotch." Because I had put in the article that he was drinking J&B. And he said, I'm an American writer. I drink bourbon, an American drink. I don't drink scotch. That's the difference between a great writer and a guy who'll never be a great writer. Someone who knows the difference between scotch and bourbon. And he said, in fact, let's just duke it out until one of us can't stand. And I said, I don't want to hurt you. Who said you're going to hurt me? But just as we were about to start, George Plimpton stepped in and separated us and insisted that Norman back off and that we not fight. We didn't have any contact until about maybe 7 or 8 months later. It was the first Monday Night Football game on ABC, and the Jets were playing the Cleveland Browns, and Buzz Farber, Norman's right-hand guy, whom I had remained friendly with, said, "This is ridiculous. I'm going to invite you to the Monday Night Football game at my house. Norman's going to be there." Norman used to leave parties if I would come. I went to a party at Lally Weymouth's house, and Norman went over and said, if he's here, I'm leaving, So I had a rather large bet on the game. I won't say how much because I wouldn't get in trouble now, but I don't want to get into that shit. But in any event, I had a very large bet on the game. And I'm sitting there with the biggest bet by far of anyone in the room, looking as if I have no bet on it, which is the way you are when you bet a lot of money that you can't afford to lose. And I'm feeling Norman's evil eye on me the whole time. He's trained on me. Norman had a very piercing, blue-eyed glare. And when he looked at you, there was really no way to look away without being embarrassing in doing so. You sort of felt obliged to look back. From time to time I would, and then I would realize it was going to become too ridiculous in the room to have us just staring at each other with 20 people and a football game on. So I'd look away at the screen, and there he was still looking at me. So when I lost in the last play of the game, I was numb.
Wait, but the game was like a real drama. It was like some kind of back and forth.
Yes, I bet on New York, and Namath threw an interception on what was either the last play of the game or something close to the last play of the game. And as a result, New York lost to Cleveland, and I lost the bet.
So you lose the game.
Right.
He's been staring at you. You get up, and then
he walks towards me. He stares at me for several seconds.
After you lose all this cash, I mean, where is your head at? Are you just in some sort of existential?
Numb. I simply stood up, and about 3 or 4 minutes later, Norman came over. Now he's standing right next to me. He looks me in the eye, and he punches me in the stomach. And at the time, I was thin, and I had very hard stomach muscles, and to be brutal about it, he didn't have the most ferocious punch in history. So it just kind of bounced off. And he continued looking at me, and then he said, I want to have lunch with you tomorrow at the Algonquin. Which actually, unlike the punch, almost floored me.
But he had no punch.
Well, I wouldn't say he had no punch. I would say that he didn't have a knockout punch.
Didn't Jose Torres teach him how to box?
He knew how to box.
They traded.
Yes, it's just
lessons,
that there wasn't huge power behind it. There was decent power.
He broke actor Lane Smith's jaw.
He did. That's true. In my defense, I will say that he did, with one punch, break Lane Smith's jaw on the set of Maidstone.
So you truly are fucking crazy.
Yeah,
Not
sure.
to bother you, but the restaurant's starting to get a little crowded, so I'm gonna need you guys to clear out.
Right.
He's in the middle of a fucking store.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt your story.
It's all right. It's not gonna. It's not gonna affect your tip.
This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but an interruption.
with a check.
Yeah, right. So,
Anyway, if you guys need anything else, take your time, all right? But we do need the table.
absolutely. Absolutely. If worst comes to worst, we'll wash dishes.
Bye.